Thank you for the great presentation so far. I've been making lots of notes as an employer and as a learning provider, actually, because I think it all links in. So that's really, really good. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Claire Gardner. I am the Managing Director of Dynamic Training, which is an independent apprenticeship company. And we are also what's called an employer spoke for the SEND Centres of Excellence. And we are funded by the Education and Training Foundation to raise awareness really about how we can make apprenticeships accessible for everybody. And when I say accessible for everybody, I'm particularly talking about individuals that are marginalised from society. And as we know, accessing work, because an apprenticeship is an employment contract, links with our health and well-being. Next slide, please. So why do we use the term supported, accessible, inclusive apprenticeships? It's really for explanation purposes only. All apprenticeships should be accessible. And for the purpose of this presentation, we're specifically talking about individuals with special educational needs and disabilities. And in adulthood, that term is now referred to as individuals with learning difficulties and/or disabilities. So let's just define the terms learning disability and difficulty, because they are used sort of crossover and interconnected with each other. So a learning disability is different from a learning difficulty, because a learning difficulty does not affect the intellect. Okay, so a person with a learning disability has reduced intellectual ability, and it sort of affects everyday activities like household chores or socializing, etc. Where a person with a learning difficulty, examples would be ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, and very much sort of linked with a different way of thinking. So which can be very difficult for individuals when we live in a neurotypical world. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So why do we encourage apprenticeships? I think I've alluded to that already, because it's an opportunity for an individual to really specialise in their career pathway, really gain the skills and knowledge around what they want to do, what they've chosen. And also it offers that opportunity. It is an employment contract, so at the end of completing an apprenticeship, you would hope that the individual is going to secure permanent employment, but it definitely gives them the skills and the qualifications to then progress. And with individuals with learning disabilities, difficulties and/or autism, it's a real opportunity. Next slide, please. If we could play this video, I'd like to just show you this video to hopefully inspire.
When I was young, I didn't have a lot of care myself, and I wanted to show people what the word care means. I like learning new skills and building up new skills, knowing how to keep rooms tidy after the personal care, learning how to read temperatures properly, and also knowing how to do personal care in the right order. Well, they were basically trying to help to see how I'm doing, but now as I've done a bit more, I slowly seem to not needed them as much. This was called care home. It's taught me with things that I've possibly not come across. When people see me that I'm in uniform, they come to me for help, and that's what I like when I'm in uniform. When I do some of my studying, it's connecting with work as well, and knowing what I can improve a bit better with work. I think it's helped me being around other people. I think apprenticeships are a good way of getting back to learning. They can focus on themselves.
Thank you. Could stop the video there, that'd be great.
If you are a young parent.
Thank you, and go on to the next slide. Thank you very much. As you can see from the video, undertaking an apprenticeship can have a massive positive impact on individuals with learning disabilities, difficulties and/or autism. So when we talk about an apprenticeship, it's not always just jump into an apprenticeship. We definitely advocate that individuals have had some exposure to the workplace in some shape or form to prepare them, because we want to manage things like anxiety and resilience and help build resilience. Because when an individual is exposed with a learning disability, difficulty and autism is exposed to the workplace, there's so many things, if you think about it, there's so many things that they've got to manage and take control of that they maybe have never done before. So we do recommend pre-employment programs before that. There's lots of media around at the moment, really positive media about supported internships within the health sector. They have Project Choice, which is their own supported internship, and they also use Project Search. And these are brilliant progression pathways where a young person with a disability or is exposed to the workplace, gains some skills and experiences, that accountability and what it's like to work, and then potentially could progress into an apprenticeship. Or there's other pre-employment programs out there that really do help to build that initial introduction into work. Next slide, please. So there are flexibilities around supplying apprenticeships for individuals with learning disabilities, difficulties and/or autism. We need to take note that actually some individuals may suit part-time apprenticeship employment contracts rather than full-time because of their health needs, because of their mental health needs, etc. We also need to take note that individuals with an education healthcare plan, which is a plan that sort of identifies educational social needs so people can get support, actually can have what's called flexibility, because in an apprenticeship framework, individuals will need to do their maths and English as well. And the usual target is level 2, but if they have an education healthcare plan, actually it can go down to entry 3 as the target. So that really does open doors for individuals. That doesn't stop individuals without education healthcare plans who do have learning disabilities, difficulties and/or autism accessing apprenticeships. It does mean, however, that they would have to go for the higher target of level 1 or level 2, depending on what level of apprenticeship they're doing. We also make reasonable adjustments throughout the apprenticeship, and I think this is key really to how to support individuals onto an apprenticeship who have additional needs. So there's lots of examples there, but I'd like to give you an example of a person that we're supporting at the moment, who is an autistic individual who has limited verbal communication. And part of the endpoint assessment is that this individual should undertake a professional discussion. Now that is not suitable for that individual. And we all know that communication is not just verbal. So actually we apply then for reasonable adjustments to be made to the assessment process so that individual is able to undertake their endpoint assessment. So it's just different examples of reasonable adjustments that can be made. We also, as an organisation, and what I do advocate is working in partnership as an employer as well as working in partnership with supported employment services that are in your locality. They supply what's called a job coach, and the job coach will focus on working with that individual in the workplace, helping also the employer and colleagues around to make those reasonable adjustments to enable that individual to work. Next slide, please. This is just, if you could just click, that would be great, and keep clicking. Thank you very much. This is just an overview of the apprenticeship journey, and really, I suppose the main bits that I would like to, that's it, that's lovely. Thank you. The main bits I would like to talk about is the beginning and then throughout the journey. So if we are supporting an individual with a learning disability, difficulty and/or autism onto programme, we actually probably do a little bit more work at the beginning, and that could be working with the employer, the parents of that individual, the individual themselves, of course, and any other services that are involved in that individual to gain as much information as we can to make sure that we are pre-planning the programme for them with the reasonable adjustments, with the types of support that's going to be needed to ensure that that journey is as fluid and supportive as possible. And throughout, as we get to know the individual more, or they might develop more independent skills, etc., we will adjust those reasonable adjustments. Thank you. If you could click to next slide. This is just a visual of the sort of support for an apprentice with a learning disability, difficulty and or autism. I think generally, if I highlight the learning support assistant and the job coach, those are two maybe additional individuals that would be supporting that apprentice. With an employer, we definitely recommend that they have a mentor in the workplace as well, that we support and train, and many other providers of apprenticeships would do the same. We work on a very much a coaching model rather than a group taught model, and we go out to the workplace to meet the apprentice and teach and train the apprentice rather than the apprentice having to travel to a set area. But there is definitely an increase in support and how often we see the apprentice. And we do the coaching models. So they would get us, for example, if they needed to do maths and or English, they would have an allocated functional skills tutor as well. Next slide, please. There is support for an employer as well. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So currently, all employers, regardless of size, will receive £1,000 for taking on an apprentice who is aged 16 to 18 years old or under 25 with an education healthcare plan or has been in the care of the local authority. There is also, I think I mentioned, supported employment services and job coach. So if we could go on to the next slide, please. There are adjustments that can be made that are outside of reasonable adjustments that can be funded through Access to Work through the Department of Work and Pensions, and they also can fund the job coach element if that individual needs that support in the workplace. They can fund travel into work, interpreters, support workers if someone maybe needs help with personal care, and any aids and equipment within the workplace as well. Next slide, please. And that's it from me. Is there any questions?
Hi Claire, we've got one question, which is, can you share any success stories of supported employment for SEND learners? Absolutely,
absolutely. So currently we have 26 individuals who have educational healthcare plans undertaking an apprenticeship. So they have more complex needs potentially. We've had people achieve, and actually a young autistic gentleman got a distinction for his endpoint assessment. Individuals have then gained jobs afterwards. So we've had a young person who did their adult care apprenticeship and is now working part-time, has been for the last year and a half actually, in the care home where he did the apprenticeship. We have individuals during their apprenticeship who actually have made change to where they've been working. So we had a young person who was working in a council doing a customer business and admin apprenticeship, and he actually became a champion within that workplace, making changes to the culture, to raising awareness with other colleagues about the reasonable adjustments that can be made, which is absolutely fantastic. We've got another gentleman who has also just won an award as Apprentice of the Year within their locality. So I hope that gives some examples.